Good evening. My name is Catherine Jenkins, and on behalf of all the middle schools here in North Allegheny School District, I'd like to welcome you to our combined parent coffee meeting. As you entered, we asked that you signed in at your child's school's table, and then we provided you with a yellow agenda, and on the back of the agenda, we also listed some of the important dates that we will go over this evening. And also, we provided you with, if you wanted to use a QR code slip, we'll go over that in a minute, and if you didn't, don't worry about it. We're going to project it up on the screen so that you're able to interact with us in real time throughout the presentation. Tonight, the meeting is one of two meetings because we'll run the same exact meeting this Friday at 9:30. So if you're wondering, do I have to go to both? No. What we do is we offer the meeting both once in the evening and once during the day so that you as parents can make a choice what works best for your schedule. So, as I said, my name is Catherine Jenkins here at Carson Middle School, and we also have Ingomar Middle School and Marshall Middle School, and we're going to go over who's all here tonight to present this information to you. After introductions, then we're going to go into the main part of the presentation, which is about scheduling, getting your 6th, 7th, or 8th grader ready for the next step in 7th grade, 8th grade, and then 9th grade as well. After that, we're going to go over some basic things that we cover at each of our parent coffee meetings, committee updates, and then some upcoming events for the district, as well as the next parent coffee meetings for each of our schools. So before we go into the specific introductions, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Stark so she can tell you a little bit more about the QR code so that you're able to interact with us throughout the evening with questions about scheduling, maybe specific questions that we'll be able to then address.
Good evening, I'm Heidi Stark, the principal at Ingomar Middle School. Welcome tonight. We're trying question and answer feature in Google Slides tonight as a way to just be more efficient with your time. So if you have questions at any time during the evening, you can use the QR code that we gave you on the way in with your camera feature to take you straight to the question and answer area of our Google presentation, or you can just put in the URL that you'll see at the top of each slide. And as we finish each section, we'll answer the questions that you've asked. And if we don't answer your question, it might mean that we just know that that's coming up later in the presentation. And of course, at the end, we'll be here to answer any questions that are individual to your child.
Thank you. You may also notice that there are some video cameras here. One of the things that we have going on tonight is we've asked NATV to video this meeting, so then we will link it to each of our websites. And that'll be for parents who maybe couldn't attend, or for yourself if you're like, I don't remember exactly what was said there, I want to review it. Or if you want to, you can watch the entire meeting once again. That's up to you, because I think that's what everyone would want to do, right? Moving on, I would like to introduce the administrators from each of the middle schools. I already introduced myself, and the other administrator, Mrs. Erin Cremone, she is the assistant principal here. She is not able to be with us. She's at a conference right now for the English Language Arts Department, so she will be back for the Friday meeting, so she was sorry that she wasn't able to attend. From Ingomar Middle School, I already introduced Dr. Heidi Stark. Her assistant is unable to be here. He's attending class this evening, and that's Mr. Morey, so he'll be back with us on Friday. And then from Marshall Middle School, we have Mr. Swager, Dan Swager, the principal, joining us this evening. Located in the back, we have Mr. Buchek. He's the assistant principal back over there at Marshall Middle School, so we want to welcome everyone here. And again, you'll be seeing all these faces should you want to come to the meeting again on Friday. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Vadnais. She's one of the CMS counselors. She's going to introduce the counselors as well as transition us into the meat of this whole presentation, which is scheduling. So here's Mrs. Vadnais.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Courtney Vadnais. I'm one of the counselors here at Carson Middle School. Our other counselor is Mr. Chance Petro. He's unable to be here this evening, but joining us this evening from Ingomar Middle School, we have both counselors. We have Mrs. Darla Allerton, and we have Mrs. Lynn Early. Representing Marshall Middle School, we have Mr. Jeff Smalley, And Mrs. Shannon Salpeck is due to give birth any day now, so we gave her the evening off with her feet up, ready to go. And representing, which is the biggest part of our presentation today, our 8 to 9 scheduling presentation, is Mr. Brian Kiggins, who is also our counseling department chair. So you're in excellent hands this evening. I have the easiest job. I'm just here to introduce everybody and then also just let you know that we will be discussing in blocks. First, we will discuss 6th to 7th grade transitioning, which is the easiest transition, and then 7 to 8, and then our biggest transition, 8 to 9. So at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Jeff Smalley, who is going to discuss our 6th to 7th grade scheduling.
There you go. Thank you, Ms. Vadnais. First of all, I just want to say I think it's great that we had such a great turnout here this evening. This is important stuff, and we stress that to your students. We stress to them that they need to take ownership of this process, whether it's 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 or 9, take ownership of it. Ms. Vadnais did kind of steal some of my thunder about Ms. Salpeck. She is 39 weeks pregnant, and she has been delightful to work with the whole 39 weeks. That's sincere. She's been great, and I told her, kick your feet up, take this night off. I think I can handle this. I'm going to talk about 6th to 7th grade, transitioning from 6th to 7th grade. Pretty simple stuff, to be honest with you, and I don't want to confuse the issue here, and I hope I know how to work this. Hey, there we go. All right, so as your child enters 7th grade, okay, again, we're continuing that maturation process of trying to build independence in these students. So the individual responsibility does increase when you go to 6th to 7th grade. Typically, there's more homework when you go from 6th to 7th grade. Unified arts for 6 weeks. So essentially, there will be one period in their day where half of their year will be spent in unified arts. Those unified arts being art, tech ed, and family consumer science. The other half will be 2 exploratory world languages, okay, each lasting 9 weeks. Now, please note that whatever languages they take in 7th grade, they're not locked in to take one of those languages in 8th grade. They can start all anew if they so choose. So when we look at it, their choices are French, Spanish, German, and Latin. And we do at all 3 middle schools guarantee their first choice. Their second choice, just through staffing, is assigned to your son or daughter. We do try as best we can to avoid the last choice, but again, that second language is assigned. Moving right along here, we're going to be in the classroom here shortly. Those forms, the world language forms, expect that to be coming home, and they're going to be returned on March 9th, okay? And we ask your child to label 1 through 4 as far as their preference. When that form does come back, it determines a lot of staffing for the next year, so you know, those are binding decisions that they're making as far as the world language selection goes. You also can change your music, all right, and same deal. If they want to change their music, does determine staffing, so that would be a binding decision. So again, it comes back to making sure that your son, making sure that your daughter is making responsible decisions, informed decisions, because it is binding for the following school year. Sample of a 7th grade schedule. Like I said, they will continue to have their 5 core academics, those being reading, math, social studies, English, and science. Gym and music will work just as it did in 6th grade, every other day throughout the year. And then that last period, like I said, half will be unified arts, and the other half will be exploratory world languages. All right, questions now or no at the end? Any questions on 6 to 7? Okay. Ingomar, Miss Early and Miss Stokes. Allerton, sorry. Old habits die hard, you know.
Good evening. Mrs. Allerton and I will be talking about the transition from 7th to 8th grade. I'm Lynn Early, again, one of the other counselors at Ingomar. Okay, just as Mr. Smalley had mentioned about the transition from 6th to 7th grade, there's an increase in rigor and an increase in student responsibility. The same goes for that transition from 7th to 8th grade. So it's kind of a gradual step approach to increasing that, not only the rigor, but the individual responsibility required for students in hopes to prepare them gradually for that transition to 9th grade and the high school rigor. So teacher policies and procedures may vary rather than the team approach. We now have a departmental approach to providing the curriculum. So teachers are no longer teamed, they are departmentalized. So you have maybe 2 teachers that teach social studies, 2 teachers that teach science, et cetera, and your child will be assigned one of those teachers for that subject. Most students, I say most, will take a full year of one of those 4 world languages to take for the whole year. Some of our students, a small portion, may be recommended to continue on with reading essentials for that final year that reading is offered in the curriculum to boost those reading skills prior to going to high school. If that applies to your child, you will be hearing from the reading teacher in the very near future to know if they will be scheduling a world language or be recommended to take that final year of reading. Unified Arts are now transitioning back to full year from 7th grade. So they will take art, family and consumer science, and technology education for 12 weeks each, spread out through the entire school year. So again, students will choose one of those 4 world languages to take for an entire school year. We do staff according to your students' request, so we ask you to give some great thought into what language they hope to take for 8th grade, because most of our students, again, not all, but most of them will continue on with that same language through high school, at least for a few years. So please give that some thought. Please encourage your child not to schedule the language based on what their friends are taking, but rather look within themselves as what their future goals are, what their interests are, where their strengths are with their languages, and plan accordingly, because we will not be changing their languages once they've submitted their forms, because we do staff based on what their requests are. Again, that small portion may be recommended to take that reading in lieu of the world language. What's the next one? Okay, as I just mentioned, that once you have selected your world language, we do ask to give a lot of thought to that because we will not be changing them due to staffing reasons. 8th graders, again, regarding the reading essentials, you'll be notified by that reading teacher if that applies to your child. And these forms are due back to their teachers on Friday, March 9th as well, with parent signature signing off that you approve of their language choice. Okay. And Mrs. Allerton is going to talk about the music choices and selections as well.
So on the scheduling form that you will receive in just about a week or so, it will also list a music section. So if your child is wishing to change their music for the following year, that is the time when they need to make that decision on that form. Once that form is turned in, as Mr. Smalley said earlier, that's a binding decision due to staffing. So it will, we will take into effect, they will go into effect for the next year, whatever choice they make on that sheet. The due date for those music and world language forms is Friday, March 9th. And finally, this is a, here we go. Can't be holding the clicker. Okay, so this is a sample 8th grade schedule. As Mrs. Early had said, your child will most likely choose one world language to study for the year, and that will meet every day all year. And then the Unified Arts will meet for 12 weeks each. So art will be 12 weeks, family and consumer science for 12 weeks, and technology education for 12 weeks. And I believe that Dr. Stark is up next.
We had a question during that part of the presentation about How fluent will 7th graders become after their exploratory world language? And the answer to that question is it's an introduction to learning languages. So the intent is not that they are fluent or mastering vocabulary of the language, but instead that they learning about languages. So they learn about the culture of the language, some of the structure of the language, and it's intended to be just that, an exploration of learning languages. I'm going to talk just very briefly about our math course placement. In order to determine placement for math class, our district has a consistent procedure across all schools, and that is that we use a number of different pieces of data to determine the correct placement. And this has been thoughtfully, this procedure has been thoughtfully created over a number of years, and it's evolved over time. We feel very confident that if your child is recommended for a course, that they can be successful in that course, that it's the correct level of learning for them. But it doesn't keep them in that pathway as they go through middle school or high school. They can change their pathway as they go through middle school or high school. And at the end of each year, we again consider if this is the correct placement for your child. Teachers make these recommendations, guidance counselors and administrators review them. But you also have an opportunity to change the placement for your child in every grade except for students coming into middle school. That is one grade that parents can't waive into a different pathway. But at the end of 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, there is a waiver form process. And when the North Allegheny Intermediate counselors talk tonight, they'll talk a little bit in more detail about that. If you're interested in that while your child is still in middle school, the procedure starts when you initiate communication or your child to the teacher of the math class. If after having that discussion with the math teacher, you do want to waive, they'll give you the form that you'll fill out. And that form then will go to the guidance office and we will review it to make that determination. But we do have that due date of March 28th that we need it by, because we make all of those decisions for staffing and scheduling before your child even finishes the school year. So a few dates just to remind you of that we talked about already. The first is that counselors are going to be in classrooms in middle school, and they are going to give your child a form to fill out to tell us what their world language choice is and to tell us what their music selection is. That will be during the week of February 26th to March 2nd. On March 9th, that's the due date that we talked about, that we need those forms back. And on March 28th, that's the day that we need the waiver form if your child is going to waive into a different math class other than the one that's recommended by the teacher. At this time, we're going to have some information to share with you about students going to high school. Mr. Kiggins? We have questions? Sure.
If my child participates in reading essentials,
You can just hand it to me if you want. Sorry. So we'll answer a few questions on this section. If my child participates in reading essentials in 8th grade, won't that put them behind in a language going forward? And the answer to that is the best decision for your child is to address your child's needs at that time. So if your child is recommended for reading essentials, we can certainly have a thoughtful conversation about why the professional team is making that recommendation. The question is, well, what about language study? Won't that put them behind? The answer is they can start learning a language in high school. It doesn't change their opportunity to learn language in high school. It does change when they start learning a language, but consider the fact that maybe exactly what they need is a stronger mastery of the English language before they begin another language. So we would be happy to talk to you about that individually. It's certainly a huge draw for 8th grade, 7th graders. They want to go into a language. Their friends are going into a language. So it's quite compelling to them to be in a language, and often difficult for parents to convince them that this is the right choice for them. So we can help with those discussions. Another question is, why would a parent want to use a waiver process for math? Can you provide an example?
There are times when a parent feels strongly that, let's say their child is recommended for the academic pathway and they just have a strong belief that they're going to work hard over the summer and they are able to handle moving up to the next level, which would be the M4 pathway. That is your right as a parent, if you know that your child is willing to put that work in. I will say that throughout our years, we've had this process in place for, I would say, close to 15 years now for math, and we feel very strongly that the placements, the recommendations are accurate, meaning we're recommending them for the correct placement. But there are times when a parent believes and knows that their child, and maybe they want them, they're going to take summer tutoring or they're going to take summer math, and they feel that they're ready to go up to the advanced level. That is when you would have that right to use the waiver process.
And the last question we have for now is, some kids will not have had their second exploratory language class until after the form is due. What advice do you have for children who are really undecided between the two languages they choose to explore? I would really recommend that you spend time with them. Our high school teachers, language teachers, have created podcasts, and in these podcasts they talk about why you would want to take one language or another language. So I would say explore the website, listen to the podcast with your child, and talk about why one language might be more interesting to them than another language. Remember, I said the exploratory languages are really to explore the learning of languages and not to invest your child in one particular language. But of course, children often are persuaded by what their friends are taking or a teacher that they have a great relationship with. We understand all of that's a factor in your child's life as well.
Just real quick, and I apologize for not saying this before, but we consider ourselves, like, you've heard of the Geek Squad, yes? We're like the scheduling Geek Squad. So if you have questions, those were great questions, please do not hesitate to call your child's guidance counselor. We welcome the opportunity to answer questions over the phone, welcome opportunity to sit down and discuss these decisions with you face to face, because we understand the importance of them.
All right. Can I grab the clicker, if you don't mind? Here it is. All right. Well, good evening. Once again, my name is Brian Kiggins. I am one of the NAI school counselors. How many here have children that are moving from 8th to 9th grade? All right. Well, good. Well, hopefully I will be able to answer a majority of all your questions. If I do not, feel free to ask them. I will go through the presentation. You are going to hear a lot of different ins and outs of scheduling, some terminology. We just want to make sure that you guys understand what it is when we are talking about credits, graduation requirements, all those fun things, so you guys can make the best decisions as a family for your son or daughter. All right, so we break up the alphabet by last names alphabetically. So I have A through C. Mrs. Feliciani has D through KO. Mrs. Mayhew currently has KR through RO. And Mr. Butler, he has RU through S, and he will have the 9th grade special ed students. Mrs. Liebenguth has T through Z, and she has the 10th grade special ed students. And Mrs. Travisari, she is really pretty much our boss, but she knows almost anything and everything that you would need to be able to get through things. But feel free to ask her questions. She will get you where you need to go at any point. All right, so the program of studies will be given to every 8th grader. So you will have a hard copy of that, but if your son or daughter misplaces it or you need a second copy, it is online. You can just go to the NAI webpage, and as you scroll down the left-hand side, there'll be a link for the program of studies. There's also one on the North Allegheny Intermediate Counselor's webpage. Either way, you have plenty of ways to get access to the program of studies. Feel free to mark it up, write in it. It will be the only hard copy that you will receive. 9th through 12th grade, all will use the online program of studies. All right, some important dates to go over. We are very strategic in how we plan these out to make sure everyone gets plenty of opportunity to be able to meet with counselors, talk, ask questions. The first thing that was already mentioned is the Honors and AP podcast. They are online, they are accessible for our students. I do recommend that you listen to a few of them, even to be able to look ahead. So if your son or daughter is thinking, I really would like to end up in a certain class, you can even hear about those things at that point to get their interest going and to be able to map out the future classes. But February 20th through the 22nd, so starting today and over the next couple days, the middle school counselors will be giving out the course recommendation sheets, explaining the process to all 8th graders in order to get them all set for NAI. February 22nd at 9:30 in the morning and at 6 p.m., the NAI counselors will be holding a scheduling meeting and also an elective transition fair. So students in the evening and parents can come to hear a presentation regarding scheduling, answer even more questions that you might have about the process, and then the students have the chance to go meet with teachers who are teaching specific electives, look at their syllabus, ask them questions, so they can make a good decision about what classes they might want to take. They only have sometimes a half to 2 credits of electives to be able to fit into their schedule, so they want to make sure that they're taking the right ones. It is well worth the time. You do not need to be there the full hour and a half, but it may be just beneficial to get there, check it out for 15, 20 minutes. Good time for their friends to be able to go together and be able to learn a little bit more. Also, like I said, the February 22nd, that is from 6 to 7:30. The 9:30 in the morning is just going to be a scheduling presentation. All right, on February 23rd at 9:30, there'll be another repeat of this presentation over at Marshall Middle School. March 2nd is the last day of course recommendation sheets to be signed and turned in to the appropriate person for the middle school. So they need to have the whole process taken care of, and I'll go over that sheet in a couple minutes. March 5th, the NAI counselors are going to visit Carson and Ingomar to be able to do a Life at NA. So we come up and we answer questions that the students really want to know at that point. It's not necessarily as much about scheduling, but what is life going to be like? The cafeteria, lockers, PE, all those questions we come up and we try to answer them for them at that time. March 6th through the 8th graders meet individually with middle school counselors to input their elective choices into Tyler. This year, they will be able to go through and learn the process with the counselor. Starting in 9th grade, they will then be doing the process individually at home through the student portal. All right, March 26th, reverse verification sheets will be distributed at that point to all 8th grade students. We do the same thing for 9th through 11th grade. So regardless, you get one more chance to look at those course recommendations and the classes they chose. They are all going to be due back on the 28th. And on the 27th, we will be going to Marshall Middle School to be able to do the same presentation of Life at NAI. On the 28th, this is really the last day for all the scheduling process to wrap up. Waivers are all due. We have every course recommendation sheet, reverse verification sheets are all turned in. Because that is the date that we turn all that data over to our principals, and they now take a look at staffing and try to make sure that we have enough faculty members to teach each one of those sections and make sure every student possibly could be able to get every course that they would want. All right, so as we go through schedule changes, we get a lot of kids, as soon as they get them in their hands, they want to know who's in what classes and they want to make changes based off that. We tell them that's not how it works, okay? So there is 1,400 students that we are going to try to get into their individual classes. So come March 28th, there's no more changes, but the only time that we will make a change to a student's schedule is if these 4 reasons. The first one is mechanical error. So we go through and the class English was left off. Of course, we are going to want to fix that and make sure we take care of that. Level changes. So level change can occur within the first 40 days of school. I'm going to go over the difference between a waiver level change and an academic level change, but it is all done within the first 40 days of school. The other 2 is needed for a graduation requirement. A student takes health and they don't happen to pass health, they are going to need that for graduation. So we will reschedule any courses that a student needs in order to graduate. and also to fill a study hall. We recommend students to put down 8 full credits. Take as many classes as you possibly can. It is beneficial. Some kids may decide I want a study hall due to sports, due to activities, to find some balance. Perfectly okay. But if they find they get into class and, within the first 5 days of school, they decide, I really do want to be in an elective instead of this study hall, we will add that to the class as long as it's offered the period that they have the study hall and there is room in that class. But it is only within the first 5 days. For a semester course, once they move past day 5, they're really into the curriculum, and there's not as much room to be able to go back and try to make up that type of class. All right. Some other terminology that you're going to hear is NCAA standings. Students at this point, believe it or not, need to start thinking that if they want to play Division I or Division II sports in college, you're thinking, why am I even going to remotely think of that? I still have 4 more years. But it's important for planning. NCAA gives us very strict standards of what a student can take and what is approved by them for NCAA eligibility. We do not pick the classes that we deem NCAA eligible. They do. They tell us it based on everything that we submit. But they need 16 credits, and they need them in very specific areas. So if your son or daughter, even if you think has a chance, may not want to participate in NCAA or be eligible, we still recommend that they check off what we call a ghost course. So it just gives us counselors an idea that this student is interested in being monitored for NCAA. We will take a look at their classes. We will see where there is room for wiggle if we need to change some things, and just make sure that we are preparing them for, regardless of where they're at come their junior and senior year sports-wise, that they could be ready to be able to earn a scholarship for sports in NCAA Division I or Division II. So as you go through, just keep that in mind as you're going. You're not signing on a dotted line. You're not committing them to anything by checking off that ghost course. Like I said, it's just information for us. All right, a few terms that you are going to hear every year from this point on that as we go through. One is a full-time course. This is a course that is going to meet every single day for 1 period a week. So your English course, your math course will all be one of those full-time courses. We also have part-time courses. So the first day of school is an A day, second is a B, third is an A, B, and it goes back and forth all year long. So our full-time or part-time courses do exactly that. So the first day of school, they may have gym. So PE is on the A day. They will have that PE course every day all year long till the end of the year. And maybe on B day, they either have a lab or they have a study hall. That'll rotate back and forth. Semester courses are for a half year. So health class typically is a semester course. A lot of our electives are half year. An elective courses is anything that the student wants to take for enrichment, personal interest, and that they can fit into their schedule at that point. A lot of our electives are half credit, but there are some full credit electives too. All right, we do have required courses. So these are classes that the student needs to take based on their phasing that is appropriate for them, but is also needed for graduation. For instance, health is a graduation requirement. Every student needs to have health before they graduate. In addition, your PE classes, English classes, but I'll go over each one of the credit counts for each one of those classes. But those are some. So as you're going through, you want to just make sure that your son or daughter is meeting those required courses. It is also our job as school counselors to make sure that your son or daughter is meeting those requirements. And honors and advanced placement courses are just an extended content and course load. They set apart from the regular. So we have about 4 phases. I'm going to go over each one of them. But this is our highest level of courses that we have. They do have an additional weight for them as they factor it in. And the advanced placement may receive AP credit or college credit at the end of the course by taking an AP exam. We map that all out for you. 8 going to 9, you do not really need to worry about AP level courses. If you are, most likely you are an advanced math student at that point. But that is something that we will help you out along the way. All right, our full year courses are 1 credit. So the ones that are every single day, they will receive 1 credit for those courses. They meet 36 weeks for 120 hours. And the half credit is either the full year part-time course or the semester course. Once again, that is 18 weeks for 60 hours or 36 weeks 2 to 3 times a week. And we have a few 1.5 credit courses. As freshmen, incoming freshmen, that would be the honors biology course. That is a class that meets every single day for 40 minutes during those days, and then it has a lab in addition every other day. So some days they may have 80 minutes of biology, then 40, and then 80, and their PE course could be opposite of that also. And then as you move into, yes, so that is, and also academic biology and honors chemistry are also full-year part-time courses. All right, graduation requirements. You need 24 credits in order to graduate from NA. We require that every kid takes 7 credits each year. So 7 times 4, 28. Most kids are going to graduate with far more credits than they really need at this point. But here's the breakdown. We do need 4 English credits, 4 social studies, a minimum of 3 math and 3 science, 1 credit in STEM, 2 credits in PE, and that is a half credit each year. So if they take advanced PE, which is a full credit course, half credit goes towards PE, and a half credit will then go towards their electives. That half credit of health, and then 6.5 additional credits. The STEM credit always gets questions. How does my son or daughter get a STEM credit? Basically, if your son or daughter takes that 4th year of science or that 4th year of math, that fulfills that STEM credit. So majority of our students are doing that. If not, there are also a variety of electives in the program of studies that you can find that are marked with the STEM label, so you can recognize when your son or daughter will fulfill the STEM credit. All right, and as freshmen coming in, they will all end up with at least 1 credit of English, 1 social studies, 1 math, 1 science, half credit for phys ed, and a half credit of health. So right there, they have their 5 credits. The last 3 are really going to be up to your son or daughter. Majority of the time, it is filled with the language. It could be music for another credit, and then or anything else that they are interested in at that point. All right, one other good thing that we do, back in the day, there was a thing called tracking. And once your son or daughter was on a particular track, you couldn't move from there. That's where they were set through. They were on that college track where they weren't. But that is not the way with things now, and also the way with NA. What we do is we look at phasing. So when the 8th grade teachers are looking to make recommendations for your son or daughter, they're looking at the whole child on that class and on that subject. So if they feel like they need some additional enrichment, and then they would be recommending for phase 1. That is the impact program. It is an interview process. Mr. Brinkley would meet with the students and get information to the parents if that would be something beneficial. But they basically are practicing those skills, but it's in a smaller setting, and it also has a little bit more accountability and study skills built in. Phase 2 is for the average student to be able to just still be able to review and practice and apply some of the skills that they're learning. All right, there we go. And phase 3 is designated what people would have called college prep at that level. Once again, all students, no matter what phase, are able to go to college. Just because they're at a phase 3 or 4 doesn't mean that they're the only ones designated for college. But phase 3 is where they need to already have those basic skills. The class is going to move at a faster pace than the phase 1 and 2, and they're going to just emphasize the higher level of thinking. And our phase 4 is really our honors and AP level courses. So those classes are already going to emphasize critical thinking, writing, and research skills. It's going to move at a rapid pace, and there are strict prerequisites. So whenever your son or daughter gets a recommendation from a teacher, you want to go through and then look at the phasing where they're at. And then based on that, you'll be able to see what the expectations are going to be, what your son or daughter may end up at the over points. So as you go through, you can look at freshman year, and then look at the sophomore, junior, and senior, and pretty much be able to map out, if they do not change a phase and they stay at this level, this is where they're going to end up being. And that's how people go through and they're like, but I want to end up at this particular class. So then you need to know, okay, do they need to move up a phase? Is that a good choice for them? So as a family, those are the type of discussions you can be having when you're looking at the phasing. And this applies to our academic courses and also to our world language. All right, the plan ahead sheet, I find extremely useful, and I use it with my students a lot and with my families. It is in the program of studies, and so you can actually just rip that page out, make a couple copies of it, but the whole goal is for students to be able to look ahead at not necessarily what is their freshman year, but like I said, if you go through, you put in the freshman year classes, and then you can work your way up from there and see where they might end up. Are those classes where they're most interested in? We also have a lot of students that'll start backwards, and they'll say, I want to be at this certain level of class before I graduate. So they're going to write that in and work their way backwards and see, based on their recommendation for 9th grade, is that going to be the pathway that they need to go? And so it's just something useful for them to be able to see. And there are also prerequisites for electives. So if they want to be in, let's say, AP Computer Science, they're going to need to be able to take Computer Science A as either a freshman, sophomore, before they even can get into that class. So it's important that they take a closer look, sit down and do some of this with your son or daughter. I know that with a lot of 10th graders when we meet with them, this is pretty much a thing that we do a good bit of the time with our students. All right, the course recommendation sheets. This is what's coming home over the next 3 days. So hopefully you will see this piece of paper. If you do not, by Friday, you are going to want to contact these great people here, because this is what's going to get your son or daughter registered for the next classes. You will turn these in. The directions are on there. You are going to be circling what electives you would want. You're going to be putting alternates down of what classes, because it's important that we know some backups just in case. But that'll give you an idea of the direction they're heading. To zoom in a little bit, this is what the top part looks like. So on the left-hand side are the current courses your son or daughter are in, the first 2 marking period grades, and then the recommended next courses. Okay, so you can see, all right, so for English, they are going on to Academic English 1. You look up the course number in the book, you see it's a Phase 3 course, it's 1 credit, and if they stay that way, that is what they would call the college prep level academic preparedness for English. Honors American History, Honors Euro. So you can go through and see which ones might be Phase 3, Phase 2, Phase 4, and so on. All the electives that they are already pre-scheduled for, such as chorus and their world language, will already be on this also. So you can see a final recommended credit hours already just for this student is going to be 7 credits. So they can take up to 8 credits, so they have 1 credit available for electives. So they can either continue with the study hall and leave it blank and do nothing more, or they can go down to the bottom portion of it, circle the electives that they would want, and those would be the ones that we would, our goal is to be able to get each one of those kids in those choices. So let's say you look up here and you were like, well, after talking with my son or daughter, they really do not want to take Honors American History and Honors Euro History. So what do? There's no waiver to move down. You do not need to worry about anything. You would just draw a line through that, and you would look up the course number for the new classes, for the American History and European History. You would write them in, and then you sign the bottom of the sheet, you turn it in, and then the counselors will go through and make those adjustments in your son or daughter's schedule. So it's important that you know that you have the ability to move back if you would want to at that point, okay? And that's free will, so you guys just go through and do that. For anything else, if you want to be able to move up, so you see that Academic English 1, and you're thinking, my son or daughter really is doing well, I would like them to move into Honors English. So you would begin the process of inquiring about that and possibly moving towards a waiver. So what happens is, the first thing that should happen is the son or daughter or the parent needs to talk to the teacher. Find out the reasons why they recommended them for that course. There could be more things outside of what you were seeing right there, and the teachers are pretty spot on with that. But if there is an exception and there needs to be one, then you would continue with the waiver policy. Maybe the teacher will say, you're right, I did not know your son or daughter really wanted to be in Honors English. I will change my recommendation and take care of that. And there's nothing more that needs to be done. However, if your teacher says, no, this is still my recommendation based on A, B, C, and D, this is where I would like your son to be. So you would then receive that waiver from that teacher. Your son or daughter is responsible for getting the signatures on that waiver, which would include the parent signature, student signature, and the teacher, the current teacher's signature. After that, they turn the waiver in to the counselors. By March 28th, counselor will sign it. They will then give them over to the principals to sign. So they really are responsible for the first 4, and the principal is the final one to be able to sign that. And once again, they are all due by March 28th. All right, so what does that mean to your son or daughter? So let's say they turn in the waiver. It is now in the hands. The change from Academic English to Honors English is done. So you get into the school year, and you're starting to feel a little bit of pressure. It's not exactly what you expected it to be. You're struggling at this point. Well, the waiver policy has been adjusted a little bit, but it usually works out in this way. For the first 15 days, your son or daughter can withdraw without any penalty. So they can move back the level of the course from Honors English to Academic English with no penalty for the first 15 days. The only thing is that everyone needs to remember, regardless of that, is grades transfer. So if they have a 68%, they will be moving that 68% with them to the next class. And there also needs to be availability in classes. So if we have an Academic English that has enough seats and enough availability, then we can move them into that class. Sometimes we'll make a switch here and there, but we will not be moving kids from a waived-in course into a class that is closed. Okay, that is, I mean, that's not fair necessarily to the teacher or to the students in that class. So those are some of the loopholes that will come up. We do try to work as best as we can to overcome them, but that is something to consider. If your son or daughter waits 16 to 40 days, they will receive a W on their transcript. That is permanent. It does not go away. It does not factor into the QPA, but it will say Honors English 1, W, Academic English 1, and whatever their final grade is. Colleges will see that. Employers will see that as they submit applications. If they decide to wait past day 40, and we highly recommend that they do not wait past day 40, they will withdraw with an E. So it will say Honors English 1, a letter grade of an E, and Academic English, whatever their letter grade is, both will be factored into their QPA. Getting an E on your transcript is really not what we want to encourage students to do regardless. But there is no exceptions for that. The district has opened up the door for the first 15 days. Last year and the years before, the first 15 days, they weren't even allowed to drop. Your only options were a W or an E. And so this year, they want people to understand that we will work with them, but at the same time, too, it is within the first 15 days. Okay? All right, some good tips that we keep trying to tell our students over and over again what it is that they might want to do in order to stay on top of things. The first thing is really checking their Gmail account. North Allegheny, I believe they all have Gmail accounts here. We just keep telling students, keep checking it weekly, because there's things that as they get up into the high school level, we will do more Navigant's email blasts so the kids are aware of what's coming up. They will get a lot of information from their teachers. They're going to communicate with their teachers via the email. So make sure your son or daughter gets used to checking the email once a week. Do it all summer long. I mean, I think it's important for them to just get in the habit. Also, the Tyler Student Portal. Every student has one now, but what we have found out that so many of our students are using their parents' portal, okay? So they're logging in under you guys and checking out their grades because it's what's easy. Mom and dad have it saved, and so they do it quickly. But it's important that they start doing it on their own student portal. Scheduling in 9th grade through up to 12th grade will be done through the student portal, not through the parent portal. So many kids are at a loss, and we're handing out their information over and over. But it's important that they start getting used to doing that. And then we will be giving them a high school Navigant's account. The middle school account will travel over, but then they will be logging into a high school account. We will be giving them that information during freshman and sophomore orientation, and that is going to give them information and data and statistics regarding graduation and colleges and QPAs and SAT scores. That all sounds a little overwhelming, I get it, but we will get you there, I promise. You will, if you have questions, we will take good care of you, okay? It's not the scary school, I promise you. All right. Do you have any questions for me? I'm going to hand off that to you. Okay. Is the parent portion on Thursday NA elective fair different than tonight's presentation? No, it's not. There is a lot of duplicate, but at the same time, too, sometimes we get different questions. Sometimes the counselor delivers it in a different way. I'll be doing part of that presentation along with Mrs. Liebenguth, so you'll see two of us there. The morning one will be two different counselors, so sometimes just getting an idea from a different perspective from a different counselor is welcome. But if you decide, okay, we want to go to the fair, feel free that when we do the introduction in the beginning, you go with your son or daughter to the elective fair. You don't need to sit through it again. You don't need to not come because you're afraid that you can't leave the auditorium. You're allowed to go, okay? So if this works best for your family and 20 minutes for the elective fair is best for you guys on Thursday, feel free. We just want to make sure that you have every opportunity to be able to hear this information, hear it as many times as you want, and to ask as many questions as you want. We do not want you guys concerned, stressed, overwhelmed, never, okay? All right. Can you be a bit more specific and better explain the content of the Honors and AP podcast? All right. The Honors and AP podcast are there from the teacher going through, giving some details about their syllabus, the expectations, the things that they are going to require of their students, maybe sometimes the time and needed outside of school to be able to accomplish some tasks, what their strengths should be. So I think overall, they used to do a evening presentation and parents used to rotate, but you can only get to 4 of those classes at one time. Now this allows you to literally go through and see and listen to every single one that you want to on your own time with your son or daughter. And then if you have questions, I mean, you could email the counselor, you could email a teacher, and we'll be able to answer them. But it's going to give you that that little bit of personal touch, even though it's a podcast, on what to expect with those classes. All right. Does my son's 9th grade math he is taking this year count as one of the credits needed to graduate? No, it does not. Okay, it will appear on the transcript. Languages, the first 1A level of a language, and their math course in 8th grade will appear on the transcript, but it does not count towards graduation. It does not count towards credits or QPA. It just allows colleges to be able to see, okay, they have taken this level of math, and they have taken the first level of the world language. So it is just a marker for colleges to see. All right, is it true that any freshman who takes academic or honors biology can take 2.5 credits of electives, can only take 2.5 credits of electives? Yeah, I mean, there's only so much time in a day. So you have 8 credits to work with regardless. So the 2.5 credits electives, I mean, one credit could come from your world language, 1 credit could come from music, orchestra, chorus, any of those at that point. And then, yeah, you may only have a half credit left to be able to fill the schedule. Freshman year is probably the tightest of the years due to the fact that we require that health credit. Once they are done with that, it does become a little bit more flexible. And as they move up too, they may realize in their senior year, I don't want to take my 4th year of a math, I'm gonna take, a couple more art courses in order to be able to develop a portfolio. You'll start seeing it fine-tune itself as they start moving up. But freshman year, it is a little tighter. It's the next step of experimenting with scheduling and electives, but then it opens up a little bit more in 10th grade. Did you say the course book notes the phase of the class? It does. So in the program of studies, as you are looking at English, it's all broken up by subject. You will then see English classes, Academic 1, Essentials 2. It'll have underneath there the credits, the year you can take the course, the phasing for that course at that point. Okay, and then down below, typically there is prerequisites or what the teacher is looking at to make the recommendation. So if you don't get a recommendation, your son or daughter doesn't get a recommendation for honors English, you can see what the expectations are. Maybe they needed a 90% in their 8th grade English and they're currently sitting at an 88. Right there off the bat is probably the number 1 reason why they didn't get the recommendation. So all that information is outlined in the program of studies, along with if it's an NCAA approved course, all those things. It is really an excellent thing to keep around and have with you. And even though you have one in your 8th grade going to freshman, it doesn't change a whole lot, but it is worth still holding on to and beating up over the next 4 years and just visiting the online as you need to for some additional updates. All right, can a student test out of a class and get full credit? We do not have students testing out of any classes. NA only gives credits for sitting in the appropriate classroom for the number of hours at this point. There is no online classes that we are offering for any academics. There are ways to accelerate. There is a way to accelerate for science, and there is a way to accelerate for math. Your son or daughter, or you are going to want to talk to your math or science teacher if you have a desire to do that. That will require extensive coursework over the summer. It's going to require them to do a little bit more independent work in order to make sure they have everything they need to be able to pass a placement test. So that is going to be crucial at that point too. But no, we do not have testing out of any academic classes for credits. All right, you explained the withdrawal policy after a waiver. Is there an equivalent withdrawal downgrade policy when a student is recommended for honors but is struggling to keep up? That actually great question, because I did forget to touch on that. So waivers, 40 days, and you drop back with the W. It is similar with the recommended course. So if they're recommended, I keep beating up honors English, but it's one quick and easy. So honors English, and within the first 40 days, they realized this is not what I was expecting. They were recommended for the course. They have 40 days to be able to drop back without any penalty. No W, no E, there's nothing to that. After day 41, we are not allowing any changes at that point. So it is really within the 40 days. But once again, I will say, grades do transfer. So if your son or daughter does have a 71%, they will be starting with the 71% in that next class. There's no way about it. We have to be able to give the teachers something to move from. And hopefully, if that's the appropriately placed course for your son or daughter, you're going to see that grade change immediately at that point. But there is no penalty, nothing that will be affected like the waiver. All right. The Blackboard system is configured incorrectly. It's horrible. All the best functionality is completely lost because of it. When will this be fixed? I have no idea. So I am not the Blackboard guy. So to be honest with you, we use Blackboard very little as school counselors. We will post things, we'll do some of that stuff, but that is an academic, teacher-driven IT question to have. So am I correct in that? Because I don't even, yeah.
Blackboard is our learning management system that we use in grades 6 through 12, and it's new to us, new in the past few years. So as we continue to become more adept at using it, I think you'll also see that the functionality that we use will also increase. But it's a great tool, and it is wonderful when your child is absent to be able to go and find the resources. And there are many features that are interactive that we simply couldn't do with just a school website. So I know that in this question the person said it's horrible, but I guess I would like to balance that by saying it is a very powerful tool that we are evolving in our use and understanding, and I think that you'll find it very helpful as time goes on.
All right. If you take academic biology, can you still take honors chemistry or physics later? Yes. That's the bonus of phasing, is that you are not necessarily stuck with that academic phase 3 biology course and not be able to move into an honors level. If the teacher recommends it, yes, you can move up. And those kids who are taking biology as a freshman, you're looking at chemistry as a sophomore or intro to physics or chemistry as a sophomore, and then whether that's chemistry or physics, again, as a junior, and then even an upper level by their senior year. Yes, there's plenty of time to be able to get all those science courses in, and you can move back and forth now. All right. Currently, there is an M4 and M3 math classes. If a student is recommended for honors math, would the student from M3 and M4 be in the same honors math class? I'm not as familiar with the M3 levels that you guys were. Yes, the answer is yes. So, yeah, I mean, the honors level courses in general, I mean, if a student is recommended for an honors level course or an academic course, we have many sections of them. So I know, like, for an honors level geometry class, we may have 12 sections of honors geometry, and we may have 12 sections of academic geometry. Yes, that'd be good.
And the last question we have is, will a new principal be in place at NAI for next year? And the answer is absolutely. NA has a very thoughtful process in hiring, and they've already begun the process for the principal at NAI, but it is a thoughtful process that takes time, so you can be assured that that is a top priority for our administration.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on, that covers all of our scheduling information. I want to thank Mr. Kiggins. He had a lot of slides there and a lot of information. And he speaks so well on all of that and handles all those questions. So thank you for taking the time to come here and speak with all of the parents about getting ready for high school. Moving forward is the remainder, and we'll go through this very quickly, of what we typically cover at the parent coffees. One of these will be going over any updates we have from the committees, SPLC, UBO, any of those committees that we have representatives here. We're also going to go over some technology touch points. Coincidentally, about Blackboard is one of them. We're going to give a quick reminder about the spring, the dress code. Since today was 74, we saw a lot of people excited for the spring weather, and just want to go over some reminders about that. Also, PSSA information, dates, and information as a parent that you should know, and then some upcoming events, like I said, for both the district and the middle schools. Right now, I'm just going, do we have any UBO representatives here that would like to give any updates to all the parents? Scanning. Okay, SPLC. Do we have any SPLC? Do you want to give any updates? Do you mind coming up this way? That's okay. That's all right.
Hi, I'm Mina DeRosco, and my daughter is an 8th grader at Marshall Middle School, and I'm one of those. I wasn't really prepared to present, but I will give you an update. UBO is the Unified Booster Organization. It is a committee of all of the athletic booster organizations from the high school teams, and there's also one representative from each of the middle schools. They do programming, they do some fundraising, they give scholarships, they do a Scholar Athlete program for the high school kids as well as the middle school athletics. So if your child is in a sport in either 7th or 8th grade and they have so 3.4, 3.75, or a 4.0, there's different levels. They get a t-shirt or a t-shirt and a certificate for each of the semesters that they are in a sport and qualify. So if they're in 2 sports and they qualify for more than 1 semester, if it's a fall sport and a winter sport, or a fall sport and a spring sport, they'll get 2 certificates and 1 t-shirt. And there's also a Kennywood picnic fundraiser, and the Kennywood trip, the Kennywood Day, there's like fundraising and some raffles and things like that that UBO does. For SPLC, it's the superintendent's parent liaison committee, and there's a representative from each of the elementary schools, each of the middle schools, and NAI and NASH. And it's pretty much an opportunity to bring questions to the table for the superintendent and the administrative, the staff of the superintendent. They take it very seriously. They have an agenda each month. They value having that parent input and asking our opinions on different things that are being discussed in the district. They'll have agenda topics and then also discussing current things. There are, I think there are minutes on the, I'm not sure. There are minutes that are posted, but you can look up a link for both UBO and SPLC on the NA webpage and see who your representatives are. If you have questions, let us know at your respective schools, and we'll take them to the group. That's all I have.
I think we need to give her a round of applause for doing that for us this evening. Thank you so much. Also, NA page, if there's any updates for NA page, come on down. I feel like this is the Price is Right where you run down and thank you.
Hi, I'm Sue Gartner. I have a 7th grader here at Carson. NA page, unfortunately I missed this past Monday. It was about the middle school blocking schedule, the proposed middle school blocking schedule. My younger son had strep, so I wasn't there. But that was presented at the school board meeting last month, if you want to go on to that website and look at what was proposed. The next NA page meeting, so the NA page is the parents of gifted students that get together. The meetings are open to everyone at any time. Often the topics are applicable to anyone, such as the middle school blocking. The next meeting, which I'm not sure what it is, but is on Monday, March 12th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon at the Barrow Center. And since I'm up here, I'm not on SAC. Was anyone else here from SAC? I'm on the EAC. SAC is Secondary Advisory Committee. EAC is Elementary Advisory Committee, but this past month was a joint committee meeting. So the one thing that I think to note from that is there is going to be another survey coming out in March regarding homework. It's going to be, smaller than the school start times. You'll be getting more information on that, but please make sure to take that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gardner, for giving us that update. I believe all of the committees that she talked about, their minutes are posted on the district website. I always find that the search, the little magnifying glass, I always use that and I type in and then that stuff just pops up. If you're ever having a challenge finding, because we have so much information on our websites, sometimes it can be challenging to find that. Are there any committees that I didn't mention that has a parent here that would like to share any information with the other attendees this evening? Okay. Moving forward would be the technology that we just wanted to touch on briefly. Coincidentally, one of the questions which was about Blackboard. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Stark. She'll also address the questions that were pertaining to this that were texted in during this time.
We talked a little bit about Blackboard, how it's our learning management system. Similar to the Tyler Student Information System, you have a login and your child has a login. Your login is almost the same, except that you have visibility over, if you have more than one child, you have visibility over each of your children, and you do not have access to their interactive features. For example, if they were to take a test through Blackboard, it wouldn't be in your login, it would only be in their login. But it does have course content that you can see, and as I said, it's very helpful if your child is absent from school, or if your child forgets to bring something home, or if they want to refer back to slides that were shown in class as they work on their independent practice for homework. Additionally, teachers can send out announcements about things that are coming up and remind them about upcoming academic expectations using Blackboard, and we can email through Blackboard. This is the calendar that your child has in Blackboard, and it includes all of the classes that they're enrolled in. And teachers, on a daily basis, ensure that their homework is posted on Blackboard. On the left-hand side, where the red arrow is pointing, is where the classes are selected, and your child can check if they want to see all the classes or just uncheck to see any classes that are posted. If you have questions about the Blackboard calendar, please let us know, because as I said, this is evolving and we want it to be useful for you. In middle school, we use the calendar like an assignment book. We encourage your child to still keep an assignment book, but Blackboard calendar markings are assigned just as if you would write down in your assignment book that tonight I need to work on this. So the day that it's posted, it's assumed to be due the next day unless they indicate a different date for it to be due. One of the important reasons, besides developing independent work habits, that we want your child to keep an assignment book is because the calendar won't tell you or your child if there's something that they didn't finish in class that they need to finish at night. So typically, work that's begun during the class period is either finished during the class period or finished as homework. And we know that children learn at different rates and they work at different paces. Many teachers say, if you didn't finish this in class, take it home and finish it tonight, but maybe it won't be on the calendar. And that's because it was assumed to be finished in class. Most children finished it in class, so it isn't a homework assignment, but your child has extra time because they need extra time. So that's why that assignment notebook is really important, because it will tell your child will be keeping track of what they need to do that night. Do you want to add? Sure.
I just asked Dr. Stark if I could interject, because one thing I try to do, we all try to do, is as we hear questions at different parent team meetings throughout the school year, it lets us know maybe something that we need to communicate. As Dr. Stark has up here on the screen, she has a picture of the Blackboard calendar. I want to remind you that your child has an iPad. We have linked the Blackboard calendar with their iPad calendar. So your child can just tap on the calendar icon on their iPad and this will pop up. Now, what you have to watch is, did they set it up to see daily, weekly, or monthly? I would recommend monthly. So if it looks different than this, it could be the way that they've set it up. If you use your iPhone or your smartphone technology, you'll know what I'm talking about when you have the calendar app. But we intentionally set that all up so it's one quick link. Now remember, that's the child's perspective, meaning their access to Blackboard. You have your own. The other thing that I learned is that some parents thought when they looked at this, it lists the class name. And they're like, see, there's no homework there. You have to click and open that to see the actual assignment listed. So if this blue line, and I can't read, let's pretend it says math, honors geometry, or pre-algebra. You have to click on that, it opens up and it says what the homework is for that evening. So what I didn't understand, or what came to my attention, was that sometimes parents thought, well, there was no homework listed there. They didn't see, they just saw the subject name. They didn't realize they actually had to click on that and open. So I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that. Thank you.
So just a few dress code reminders as the weather gets warmer. Please take a look and let me just point out a few that we see often. The jeans with holes are very popular. More holes now are more popular. Please just make sure that the holes in their jeans, just like their shorts and their dresses, are below fingertip length and not close up to the top of the leg of the pants. Spaghetti straps, halters, and anything that would show their undergarments are not appropriate, but very popular also. So please make sure they have something to wear over top. We don't want to spend our time policing their dress, but we also want to make sure that no one's clothing is distracting to other learners. So help us out with that, please, and talk to your children about these requirements, because we know that wardrobes are going to be changing as weather gets warmer. You can just remind them we have air conditioning. It's going to be comfortable. They don't have to wear the same clothes that they wear outside to school, because we're there for that important purpose of learning. And Mr. Buchak, here you go.
Good evening. My name is Matt Buchak. I'm the assistant principal at Marshall. And coming up in April, we have our PSSA scheduling dates. Our first test will begin with would be our English Language Arts exam or test. It will be over 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and will be for all grades in the middle level. If you take a look at your agenda on the back, you'll see the dates as well. Next up would be the math. Then the week afterwards would be the science. And in May, we will have our Algebra 1 Keystone exams. The science and the Algebra 1 Keystone exams will be offered to our 8th graders, but those who also take the Algebra 1 course. The next piece, helpful tips to assist our students during the PSSA run and just in general. It's always great to have a good night's sleep, to eat breakfast, and a couple of items for our kids to bring in during the testing window, during the math piece, the calculator. If you have questions about whether or not your calculator is approved for your child, you could always ask our school counseling department or your principals. A highlighter, they're permitted to bring in a highlighter, and this is a great opportunity to encourage our students to try their best on this exam. This is a great opportunity for them to showcase the knowledge and skills they've obtained throughout their academic experience. Next up, Mr. Swager.
Thanks, Mr. B. So I have some marker calendar information for some really nice events coming up. As you can see, our parent coffees are up on the screen. You can also find them on the district website or the district calendar, and I know that each building always sends out a reminder as those dates get closer. We encourage you to attend. A lot of great information we'd like to share with you during those times. The Taste of North Allegheny, put on by the NA Foundation, it will be on March 24th. We put this up here because the NA Foundation does a lot of great work with us and providing us with a lot of nice opportunities, so we want to make sure that we give you that opportunity if you'd like to go to the Taste of North Allegheny. And then North Allegheny has partnered with CCAC and Northland Library. We've heard a lot of nice feedback on these presentations that they put on, and it is all technology focused. So these events can be found on the district website if you want to go on and learn a little bit more about them. I do encourage you to do so. And then mark your calendars for the next Community Connections Seminar. That will be April 4th, and they are still coming up with the topic because they want to make sure that it's relevant to our students and to our community. So they're continuing to work on that. So if you want, you can go onto the district website and learn more about that information. With that, what I'd like to do is just say thank you to all of you who are here. I'd like to thank Carson Middle School and Ms. Jenkins for being such gracious hosts. And at this time, we will take questions, but I think the most efficient way to take your questions would be to break out into the individual buildings. So, we have questions here?
We had a question about where do you get tech support in middle school for Blackboard or iPad issues. Each of the middle schools have a computer lab assistant that is our go-to for when your child has a problem with their iPad. And Blackboard, it would be best to go straight to the teacher, and if you'd want to come straight to the administration, that's fine as well. Sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. And I'd also like to just reinforce that we threw a lot of scheduling information at you. Our school counselors are here every day, and we're also here, so if you ever need anything, please reach out to us. We'd love to do our best to help solve your problem or your question.
And one last thing before you go, we will, like I said, we'll put a link to this meeting on each of our school websites. We'll also get the PowerPoint up on the websites because many times people want to revisit that. So just give us a day or two for the PowerPoint. Give us about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days for the video to get that going in case you have any questions, because as Mr. Swager said, it is a lot of information, and should you need to refresh, that'll be a way. And also want to encourage you, if you've never gone to the Taste of NA fundraiser that he talked about, it's really good. You get a lot of food. I know I've gone to some events when you get to sample and I still leave hungry. At that particular event, you get lots of food. It's a nice evening, and it's a great way to support the district. It's very informal. You can walk around, talk to whomever, bring the family, and have a good evening and good food. So I found it to be extremely enjoyable and fulfilling. So hope you can attend. At this time, what we'll do is, if you have individual questions for Marshall, Carson, or Ingomar, we'll just kind of spread out up here. Feel free to come up, introduce yourselves, and we'll take your questions.